Frontenac House would like to acknowledge, in the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge that we live, work, and play on the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy, Siksika, Kainai, Piikani, and the Tsuut'ina, the Nakota Nations, the Métis Nation Region 3, and all the people who make their homes in the Treaty 7 region of southern Alberta.
Hi there, my name is Neil Petrunia. I'm the publisher at Frontenac House. It's a pleasure to be here with you guys today to introduce what we're calling the COVID Quartet 2020. The times that we live in have forced us to make some adaptations to the way that we normally launch books. So what we're doing is we're doing this video. We're having the four authors read in the independent bookstores that we have access to here in Calgary, with the fourth author reading in from the wilds of Nova Scotia. So we have Tyler Perry, who's reading from the next page in Inglewood. We have Lisa Richter, who's reading from, as I said, the wilds of Nova Scotia. We have Joan Shillington reading from Pages in Kensington, and Alex Williamson reading at Shelf Life. Okay, we're proud to, Frontenac House, we're proud to have published either a quartet, quintet, or dectet for 20 consecutive years. It's a big deal for us, 20 years. In 2000, when David and Rose Scollard initiated Frontenac House, they described their goal as to publish edgy, in-your-face poetry from new and established voices. I think the past 20 years has proven that they were quite successful, and we are continuing to be quite successful with that objective. We couldn't publish such excellent writing without excellent editing. Micheline Mailer is one of the best, and in my opinion, the best poetry editor in the business. She's been a partner in our efforts in every sense of the word, and we are honored to have her on our team. I'd like to ask Micheline to introduce our authors and their incredible books, and she is wearing the 20-year anniversary tiara. Micheline?
Good day and welcome to the Quartet launch 2020. It is Frontenac House's 20th anniversary of putting out amazing poetry books. I'm so excited to be here today at Owl's Nest Books, who's been a great supporter of Frontenac House, of Calgary, and of the book reading community in Britannia. Here is a display of the Frontenac House books that we'll be launching today. And I would like to talk a little bit about each particular author, not by the bio that you can read on the back, but rather from what I got to know about each of the authors individually. Our first reader today is going to be Tyler Perry. Tyler Perry, if you don't read it in his bio, is a boundary pusher. He's a deep contemplator. And what he does in his book is he thinks about things in a way that maybe you didn't think about them quite in the same way once you're finished. Tyler Perry is an exceptional supporter of many students in Calgary and of the spoken word scene. Please welcome Tyler Perry.
I'm Tyler Perry. I'll be reading from Plausible Wrong Answers. It's my new book coming out with Frontenac House. Actually, this is the launch. So I'm launching the book tonight. Excited to be here at the Next Page bookstore, reading from Plausible Wrong Answers with Frontenac House Press. So when I started writing these poems, there's a variety of styles in here. The one I'm going to start with is what I've started calling the distractor poem. And basically what a distractor poem is that I take a standardized test, like the Alberta Diploma exam, and I take the questions out from the multiple choice section, and I use those questions to write new poems to go with. And the idea behind that is that each potential answer is entertained in some way so that it's plausible, but that is ultimately wrong. So the first one I'll read right now is called The Poet's Approach. The Poet's Approach, number 22. In Alden Nolan's poem, Incident Observed While Picking Up the Mail, the poet's approach to the subject of the poem reflects A, an attitude of indifference to social conventions, B, the contrived nature of personal relationships, C, an empathetic view of a bittersweet moment, or D, the traditional aspects of a specific event. Approach the poet with caution. His attitude of indifference to social conventions reflects his sociopathic tendencies. as do the contrived nature of his personal relationships. This poet lacks empathy. All of his moments are bittersweet, unless they are simply bitter. He drinks black coffee because the taste of the specific brand of coffee whitener they traditionally use at these events leaves a chalky taste in his mouth. He eats sugar cubes on their own, not in his coffee. The subjects of his poems are always reflections of rippled shadows under moving water. The poet is a voyeur who parks near high schools and adjusts his rear-view mirror like a periscope to the sidewalk. He creeps into the classrooms and smooths out crumpled papers, shakes pencil shavings onto the floor. He steals his poetry from recycling bins and shredders, scotch tapes strips of paper back together, scrapes gum from the undersides of desks. The poet takes burnt coffee from the pot and abuses the photocopier. He does not like to be questioned. So that's one of my distractor poems. Also, another thing that I've been doing with this book is basically just playing with the multiple choice test format in general. And I was having fun with creating test questions that went with the poems that I'd already written. And so this is a poem called Magpie with some questions to go along with it. And by the way, the answer key is at the back of the book. Magpie. Take a lesson from the magpie, who in January rips breakfast from ice and asphalt, tempting traffic to crush its hollow bones, while its beak scrapes clean eye sockets of a flattened squirrel. The blind anger of winter punishes these birds, coal-feathered fighters who would claw at a car tire before surrendering a meal. I've heard that magpies remember faces, are known to take revenge. Even while blood recoils in their empty bellies, you'll hear them screeching at the dawn, their pointed beaks daring winter to look them in the eye. Number 15. In the poem Magpie, the squirrel is employed by the poet as a symbol of A, an obsolete public school curriculum, flat, dry, but still useful to the student who is determined to learn. B, a sightless ideology turned carry-on, flattened and decimated by pedagogical opportunists. C, the desperation of humans to find meaning and contentment in the chaotic brutality of the winter of our times. D, casualties claimed by industry and progress. Or E, the hopes and dreams of the poet. Not the speaker, the poet. Okay. Now this next piece is what's known as a glossa poem. And a glossa takes four consecutive lines from a poet's already existing poem, uses it as an epigraph, and then works those lines into the four stanzas as the last lines of four different stanzas. So the first four lines I have here from Emily Dickinson's poem, and then you'll hear those lines repeated again at the end of each stanza. My poem is called The Funeral in Her Brain. I felt a funeral in my brain, and mourners to and fro kept treading, till it seemed that sense was breaking through. Emily Dickinson. I make my students recite poetry, and they hate me for it. They stand up in front of the class, and with their voices scratched like well-loved vinyl, they run the needle of their insight along the fine groove of the long-dead poet's vein, and amplify a meaning that's been liquefied, warped, and reshaped into their version of that poet's pain. I felt a funeral in my brain when I heard Emily Dickinson's words scraped through the weariness of a 19-year-old girl whose father was killed 2 years ago, and whose mother alternates between getting dressed up for an evening at the VLTs or balled on the couch in the glow of infomercials, picking scabs on her forearms and plucking out the hairs from her scalp, one piece at a time, brushing over to let it grow, and mourners, to and fro, walk up and down the front steps, bringing beer and bourbon, wanting to break her mother out of that funk, but always leaving before it's time to dump the ashes down the sink and press wadded paper towels on the soggy, drink-soaked carpet. The friends who teamed in the night before all sifted themselves into the early morning drift of rumpled walkers, while the daughter, cleaning, tired, steamed, kept treading, till it seemed that her mother was just another stained blanket draped over the side of the couch, and that lunch would be stale bread and jam, and that the only sleep she might get would be on the C-train ride into school that morning on her way to English class. The poem crumpled in her hand. She proceeded to chew the skin around her nail until it bled, pressed the side of her face against the cool winter glass, and muttered Emily's lines methodically until she knew that sense was breaking through. Okay, this is another distractor poem, and it's called How to Bathe a Child. Number 28. In Seamus Heaney's poem, Mother of the Groom, the image of his glistening back in the bath, lines 2 to 3, reveals the A, depth of the mother's emotion, B, son's innocent view of the world, C, son's contentment during childhood, or D, vividness of the mother's recollections. Mother rarely recalls things vividly anymore. Images splash across the fogged glass of her memory, his glistening back in the bath, the sopping washcloth in her curled fingers, the steady trickle of a leaking toilet tank. The depth of the well in which her memories stir together like milky bathwater is unknown. Confusion pools the rims of her eyes, clings to each lash like hoarfrost. He bathes her now that she knows him again, dabs at bed sores with the sponge, views the world through the rippled scars left by last winter's case of shingles. Not that she remembers. She is innocent of the pain and the howls that rang from her body back then. She hums her contentment, a child again. When she is dried off and tucked into bed, he drops a kiss on each closed eyelid, 2 rocks into a bottomless pond. Okay, so the next 2 are related to schools. I am a high school teacher, if you hadn't noticed. And I've saved a couple of these for last. Usually at this time of year, schools often have nightmares about teaching. Usually starts in August, but it's really bad in September. This school year kind of feels like we're living the nightmare, but this next one here is called When All the Schools Burned, and I'll just get right into it. When all the schools burned, like paper houses, and the schoolyards became graveyards for textbooks with their bruised backs and broken spines, we built new schools, sandstone tombstones for the way things were. They hunched in the fields, strong and rooted as mountains against the prairie landscape, saw-toothed mountains biting the sky. Black clouds spread, broken bone bruises, and the rain beat its blunt chisel in the mud while flagpoles sprouted in front yards. Now we build our schools out of cardboard and fill them with paper children, unfolded snowflakes that melt in desks, wrap the corrugated walls, and stand stark white against a background of beige. Matches are kept in the library, stack upon stack of little wooden sticks, their tips pulsing with potential, yearning for a spark, some flint, a carton of gasoline, anything to get those paper children to light up, to dance, to show a little flair before being reduced to ash and smoke. And this last one might be the weirdest that I'm going to read tonight. I actually used to work at a high school that was right across the street from a poultry processing plant. And when it was hot outside, particularly in September and June, the smell of the chickens was quite strong and ripe. And so the smell would work its way into my dreams, I guess. And so this is kind of a nightmarish poem. It's called Chicken Factory. Saint Something School, that red brick building, squat and sprawled across the street from the poultry processing plant. Around exam time, the waft of warm chicken rot runs its sweaty palms across the windows, wipes its yellow milk tongue on my lips, turns the inside of my mouth to soggy chicken skin. By mid-afternoon, my breath is wet feathers, and students are greased, pale, plucked-looking, hatching eggs in their armpits and crotches while they cluck and preen in desks, peck out answers with pencils. They are ready-to-bake birds lined up on trays, seasoned curriculum stuffed into cavities, crammed into the hollow where their necks used to be. We teachers collect body parts of chickens from the tarmac, sweep piles of backbones into backpacks, and catch falling feathers on our tongues. Sip coffee. When we sit too long, we explode, billow out gases fermented over the semester. Across the street, white uniformed factory workers sit on the roof of the white building and smoke, while trucks idle in the alley, packed with chickens waiting for slaughter. Thank you. So that's all the poems I'm going to read tonight. I want to thank The Next Page for hosting this reading. Thank Frontenac House for publishing my book. Micheline Mailer especially for being a fantastic editor. This book has gone through so many transformations since Frontenac accepted it back in June 2019. It's filled with artwork that done by Anna Navarro, who was the cover artist. And if you see inside the book, she's actually illustrated a full section, and the artwork is absolutely stunning. So I highly recommend picking it up. It's beautiful hand drawings to go with some of the poems. And yeah, it was a fantastic experience from start to finish. Tremendously collaborative. I've never had such a hands-on team to work with for a book, so it's been really good. So thank you to Neil, to Frontenac, to Micheline, and to the other authors of the Quartet series. I can't wait to read your books. Thank you very much. Good night.
Our second reader today is Lisa Richter. Lisa Richter lives in Toronto, but she is reading today from Nova Scotia. However, if there's something that I could say about Lisa, it's that I fell in love with her reading and her voice. The first time I heard Lisa Richter read, she was phenomenal. She was engaged in the trance of the reading. Nautilus and Bone is a poet's book. It has all of the technical aspects that you might hope for in a poetry book, and yet tells the story of a wild feminist named Anna Margolin. If there is a reincarnated Anna Margolin in the world, it is certainly Lisa Richter. Please welcome her today all the way from Nova Scotia.
Hi there, this is Lisa Richter. I am thrilled and delighted to be launching my new collection of poetry, Nautilus and Bone, with Frontenac House tonight. I'd just like to say that it's an honor to be part of this year's quartet, and I'd like to extend my deepest gratitude and appreciation to everybody at Frontenac House, in particular my incredible editor, Micheline Mailer, and my extraordinary book designer and publisher, Neil Petrunia. Thank you so much for bringing this book into the world. My collection was inspired by the life and work of Anna Margolin, who was a Yiddish language poet in the early 20th century, who was known for being a bit of a radical, a rebel, who lived an unconventional life, very much according to her own rules. And I was inspired by Anna Margolin for various reasons, both personal and literary, which I explain more in the book's preface. I'm going to read a few poems from the book tonight. Some of them are more in the surrealist realm, others are grounded more in the physical world, and they're all fundamentally, I think, a combination of those two. The first poem I'm going to read is called Mother of Exiles, Ellis Island, 5 December 1906, and it engages with the poet's initial arrival in New York City at the age of 19. It begins with an epigraph from Emma Lazarus's famous poem, The New Colossus, at the base of the Statue of Liberty. Not like the brazen giant of Greek fame, a mighty woman with a torch, whose name is the imprisoned lightning, and her name Mother of Exiles, Emma Lazarus. From the deck railing, she swims into focus. Feature by feature, oh, Madame Liberté, it is I, not you, the brazen giant of Miss Lazarus. How long have you been waiting? Whose books do you clutch to your apple-green breast, gold-frayed in morning's unguarded alchemy? With a torch incendiary in your other fist, your hands are occupied. Dark lady, I am tired, not poor, though I've nothing to show but gestures toward bankrupt agony, water-marbled topography threatening to plague me until my death. How can I give you what I am too weak even to name? Mute goddess, does your arm throb from your ideals held aloft, from the gulf between what's lived and what's spoken? You cannot reach me, and I cannot laurel your face in my hands, much as I yearn to, not after a fortnight aboard the SS Finland, my insides tipped in a glass bottle, pummeled by tantruming storm, all rupture and enjambment, now coming to dock. Will you lift your golden lamp to guide the 1,000 peacock eyes festooning my taffeta train? Or will you keep your light turned inward, as I fear you have learned? Disrobe, pale matriarch, abandon your tired post. Let us rescue each other from crone-like brambles, a new world's ebb and swarm. This next poem is called 2,000 Rubles. It starts with a Yiddish proverb, God save us from having one child, one eye, and one shirt. Only a child, the only child my mother could bear. Only I floundered in her zealous grasp, no light permitted to enter the citadel she built around us, stacking stones as if walls could keep me from growing away and outside her meager domain. If only. As a girl, I was alone, the lone tulip leaning in a flute of green-lipped water on the wide-grained table, my girlness a shame, living proof of her wound's mute undoings, swollen gloom, all she'd lost, not only the suns who tried and failed to bloom. Only my mother knew the frozen ache, the blackberry clots, the stillborn's frozen blue, winter's beak pecking translucent skin, slosh of ice blood raging for spring. How in a snow globe's vertigo she'd flailed, dwelled in the slit of a broken needle's mocking eye. My father had landed her for a dowry of 2,000 rubles, an ungodly sum, the only offer my grandfather needed. Everyone knows a simple girl whose hips smack of silk must be married off post-haste, lest the branch she swings from droops until it nearly kisses the earth, tensed to the point of breaking. Indeed, what man can stomach a litter of rotting pears, all that split, mealy skin, oozing pulp, squandered juice in a lonely orchard's shade? This next poem is called Flâneuse. Flâneuse is the feminine form of the French word flâneur, which refers to someone who enjoys leisurely walking around a city making observations. The poem begins with a quote, "The female club lounger, the flâneuse of St. James Street, latchkey in pocket and eyeglasses on the nose, remains a creature of the imagination." Amy Levy, British poet, essayist, and novelist, 1888. East Broadway, 1907. Hush, do you hear the frogs' tenor chorus? A pantomime squeezes a tiny accordion. 3 crooning drunks share a single pair of pants. Little girl selling paper flowers for ladies' hats. You have your face on wrong. Quick, no one is looking. Take it off and put it on again. A newsboy fishes for his childhood off the Williamsburg Bridge. It comes up with a half-drowned swan, a soggy pair of bloomers, a human thumb with a red lacquered nail. My wet hair comes undone, wraps tentacles around men, it hauls to me at my bidding. Each one weeps when I set him free. Can you blame me for breaking curfew? I come home to Aunt Lena's house on Rodney Street after twirling all night in a storm of lightning and wine, brush the twigs and crush diamonds from my rosy feet. What's this behind my ear? An ancient book of spells for the intoxication of prospective suitors? 2 tender egg-sized bumps swell beneath my scalp, equal distance from my part white furrow. In the dark, I feel their soft protrusions, 2 velvet-fuzzed antlers, slowly beginning to sprout. This last poem I'm going to read is in 3 parts, and it's called Jewess. 1. Don't call me Jewess. Call me hellfire and fishhooks, the moon as it violets the earth in mollusk silver shadow, papered with yellowed envelopes and wheat. Call me pale skins stretched into backlit sails. Call me opium, milk rose, a comet's saliva trail spittling the blue globe. Call me abacus. Call me the bespoke noose you wind in loops around your fingers. The tangerine light that shimmies through curtains as evening sidles in steady advance towards you. The burnished apple's high scarlet gloss, a windpipe's hollow moan. Call me newsreel, hollyhock, sundial, astrolabe, the peacock's shimmering cyanide blues and gangrene greens, the rusted latch from the outhouse door that claws open and warms to your calloused clasp, an iodine sunset swelling across a wound. 2. Jewess, the feminine ESS, the S doubled. Two snakes brandished like iron daggers in each hand of the Minoan goddess. Add a final E to make Jewess, if you like, for an extra Chaucerian besmearing. Insolent as Lilith, seditious as Eve. Murky, dark, hairy, hook-nosed. Her bolder breasts leaking venom and ink. She throws the evil eye, turning men into writhing eels. Between her legs, the mouth of the bear's cave, musky as wintered sleep, matted, slick, and deadly as the excretions of insects lurking for their prey. Beneath her crude leather shoes, worn from treading the stone paths around peasants' cottages and hexing them, devil's horn bunions extrude from the sides of her feet. She crows for blood, aches for tissue and tendon. She, not the Jew himself, is the true threat, the real enemy. Dream thief, genius of treason, corrupter of Gentile children. The forger, the smuggler, pain-bringer, wart-giver, crop assassin, beguiler of horses. She-wolf, bulbous, vicious, destroyer of villages, greedy temptress of husbands. Beware her crooked teeth, her spindly legs, her manly arms, her mustachioed upper lip, sharp whiskers poking like stubs of dry grass. She will do everything you have feared you wanted. Everything you have wanted to fear. 3. Hang me from your boudoir wall in a frame of nautilus and bone. Shadow box me for your velvet-lined safe. Take me in your philandering arms. Is its small world reflected in a monocle's looking pool sky? On your command, I will tarantella, glaze my lips with crimson wax. Beneath your gaze, my hands grow heavy with rubies bedecking my willow switch fingers. Watch me now as I machete my own hair, lavish my skin with tattoos, peel away language you have adhered to my body in the drape of night. When you ask me my name, where I come from, I will unhook my tongue, unfurl the snow-sheathed steps, rippling in the mind's phantasmagoria, and say to you, I was born on a jutting arm over the mouth of the volcano, and raised in the succulent cumulus of heaven. Thank you so much.
Our third reader today is Joan Shillington. She's reading from her latest collection called Let This Lake Remember. Let This Lake Remember is a love letter to childhood, a love letter to her growing up and her father's influence on her life. The other thing that I think is fascinating about Let This Lake Remember is that it's a love letter to the environment. When the environment was bigger than it is now, when the environment was so vast that we couldn't use it up. It was a different time in the 50s, and Joan Shillington engages in this time with this contemplation of her own upbringing in this environment. Please welcome Joan Shillington.
Hi, my name is Joan Shillington. I'm going to be reading from my new book, published by Frontenac, Let This Lake Remember. I would like to thank Frontenac House for publishing this book, and especially Neil and Terry and Micheline, who are so professional and excellent at detail. Truth. We don't swim from our shore too many rocks. Instead, take my father's boat to the middle of the lake. Motor cut, we jump in. I do not know how to swim, but do not hesitate. I plunge down, down, feet first. Fear does not accompany me. The dark blue water tethers sky to my body. Overcast days, when gray clouds and lake become one, an endlessness narrows into my bones. I open my eyes, stretch, pump myself up towards surface light. Dog paddle back to the boat, arms working hard. When Dad lifts me in, it feels like flying. Last night, alone at home, emptiness hollowed into the space that separated my childhood and Lake Wabman. Memories squalled within, as if at any moment white-capped waves could wash our neighbor's body wrapped in my father's net beneath my lentil. At the cabin, Dad is a beautiful man. He smokes meat, fish, laces hot sauce into his stew, teaches me to drive. But what is beauty? His image in my countenance? Where is it found? In a Nevenrude? Bottom of a bottle? In the act of chopping wood? I dangle my feet in Lake Wabman's coolness, watch algae-covered stones move through ripples. I know it is an illusion. That is the truth. My father went to our cabin 60 miles west of Edmonton every weekend, I should say, and I went with him. And this will explain how I felt during my teenage years. In the winter of a young girl's heart, daylight fades at 4 p.m. January, cabin shadowed even on sunny days. St. Joe's Saturday night school dance ghosts through the cedar logs into grade 10 longing. Elvis's rhythms beat through me, sound waves traveling 60 miles west. Aching to be there, twisting with chubby checker, waltzing close to George, who asked me. I want girlfriend sleepovers, giggle into wee hours, instead of pegging pips with Dad, instead of endless evenings talking to half-cut or full-cut adults, instead of enforced year-round Lake Wabman weekends. Obedient I do. I do ask my father to take the skidoo out and ride night ice and overflow. I fly across pressure ridges, tears streaming my face, snot and scarf frozen together. Ignition off, without mind to shore or distance or coyote wandering, or if the engine fails to start. I am a long way from shore. Night sky above me reaches into the great silence. Ice groans and cracks. The first tiny shard of cold enters my heart. Coyotes. Fur-patched and brittled, coyotes stalk winter. Yelps hollow as a train whistle at -35. Rabbits, kittens, teacup poodles, paw prints disappear into the night. A final memory is all we want. Rain, sleet, fog our way. The farmer's almanac predicts a late spring. As children, we paused on the edge, plunged our toboggan into an abyss. Frost-blind, we screamed through buttermilk clouds. Hush, hush, kittens and pups. Ditches. Memory is where you fall in love with the folds of your childhood when your wrist does not wear a watch, and you saunter 5 miles to Wabman, squeezing Brome milk juice between your front teeth. Cool bottle of Coke in one hand and O. Henry in your pocket. It's where wild aromas take shape in train whistles and steel tracks, where, blinded and grit-coated when a vehicle passes on the graveled road, your lungs cough dust, you step from the ditch, continue the journey. Snow falling in large flakes. My older brother and I walk along Beach Road. Our footprints fill in behind us as if we had never been. We talk about how no two snowflakes are alike. I remove my mittens and crystals melt in the palm of my hand. This is what happens to our Father's thoughts when he drinks too much. Let his words that fall on you also dissolve. The Tempest. A tempest brews. Calm waters worry into waves. The lake, a cavernous gray mouth. And I wonder why my father would set his nets this night. Calm waters worry into waves. I place nets on board as ordered, wait on the pier. And I wonder why my father would set his nets this night. The boat rocks and squeaks against nailed pier tires. As ordered by my father, I place nets on board. I help 5 adults, 3 children pile onto cushions. Boat capacity 9. The boat rocks and squeaks against nailed pier tires. I open my mouth to warn them. Wind blows my words away. 5 adults, 3 children pile onto cushions. Boat capacity 9. Thunder, lightning, high winds through the night. When I open my mouth to speak, wind blows my words away. They should be back by now. 11 p.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m. Thunder, lightning, high winds all night. My sister and I knock on doors for help. They should be back by now. 11 p.m., midnight, 2 a.m., 3 a.m. I know where they are. Take me into the storm. My sister and I knock on doors for help. Lake Wabman, a cavernous gray mouth. My stomach clenches so tight I can hardly breathe. A tempest brews. Dear Dad, in your next letter, please tell me how you are. Is there wood for you to chop, plane to fly? My childhood nightmares return. I dream of war, but you are not there. A Cessna gains altitude. Pilot's face peels off layer by layer. I see tears rivet down his cheeks. He attempts a pontoon landing between bombed-out buildings. You walk up, down Kingsway Avenue, flight jacket open, cigarette turned into your palm. Old and frail, you walk with a cane. Old and frail, bones brittle, so brittle joints break apart, clatter to the sidewalk. Your grandchildren, great-grandchildren, make a Day of the Dead altar. I tried to tell them about you, but the way it was then is not how we live now. They construct your stories with Lego and Meccano. Last week, I stood on our shore, looking at the past. Thank you.
And our last reader today is Alex Williamson. This is Alex's first book. I've known Alex for about 13 years. And what do you do when you realize that you are middle-aged when you're 19? Alex Williamson's book, Very Bright, Almost Pretty, discusses what it's like to be in constant mortal danger because of his cystic fibrosis. It is an engagement with his living and his short, brief life, his hope, his dreams, and his strengths. Please welcome Alex Williamson for his debut book, Very Bright, Almost Pretty.
Hello everyone, my name is Alex Williamson. I'm here at Shelf Life Books in downtown Calgary. Thank you for coming to Frontenac's House online launch for their 2020 Quartet, and I'll be reading from my new book, Very Bright, Almost Pretty. First poem is called Testimony. Alive inside a hopeless body, beastly footsteps ripple through every cell. Mutation Delta F508, a troll in my genetic code. Slimy green fingers spread through my lungs, dangle a deep breath always just out of reach. Absence makes a person. Growing up, I choked silent the words cystic fibrosis every time I spoke my name. The air darkened around my vision. I grew dizzy from the lies. When I fell, I hid the stone I tripped on, let anyone watching think me clumsy. Innocence, for me, was thinking I could pass healthy, and innocence ended bloody. Now I know my face purple and suffocating. I can close my eyes and see the never dark of a hospital room at night. The nurse's call button stares into my head when I sleep, asks my dreams why I am here and what I am going to do about it. Outside the cold glass, I hear the great variety of this human species, each believing the rules of their own lives. My life has rules. Twice daily treatments and about 30 pills. Check in with every cold. Keep my gut well. Watch my weight. Don't get too skinny. Be clean. The life expectancy of my people crawls up to 60. At my birth, the deadline was 30. Not long at all to craft a life's work. At 28, ambition and illness make a tight race. Medical advancements almost as slow as my disintegrating lungs. Many of my people don't make it to 60. Not even halfway. Sometimes knowing can crush me. Hope slips through even the hospital room doors with outside locks, past the monster inside. Fragile green roots push through monolithic concrete expectations. I'm not going to take this lying down. Everything next is only life. This next poem, I have a series of kind of playful obituaries in the book, so this is the third obituary. Alexander Joseph Williamson was presumed dead after disappearing from his hospital bed on January 15th, 2053. The attending nurses and doctors, when asked how this could happen, only shrugged collectively. Good riddance to a difficult patient, said the doctors. He bought us chocolates, commented the nurses, but they all had work to do. Authorities promised to keep their eyes open. Williamson's friends and family refused comment. They all smiled secrets at each other. This next one, Manifest Fear, is half of the inspiration for the cover art. It's the blood. Manifest Fear. 1. 2 nights in a row, I fill up the sink with blood. Red flowers bloom before me. Fresh lung blood, too. Very bright. Almost pretty. Too bad about the texture. So much grit. Maybe 2 cups so far. Not quite time to call 911. Try and gauge the flow instead. Place myself within my lungs. Know how big of a scar I am making. Count how many are already there. 7. I think. 2. I've never met another CFer. I know of my kind only through their operations, how much worse off they are than me, with their colonoscopy bags, their petrified livers, and their lung transplants. In all my solitude, my fears are sacred, loyal. I have nightmares of bogeyman surgeons. They sneak into my bedroom, cut out my lungs with scalpel fingers. Empty-chested, I blend with the children from the posters, wearing nebulizer masks in black and white, telling the world I breathe through a straw. I stuff this child into my empty ribcage, where his sad eyes won't see a thing. 3. Mother's Day. I sell flowers out of a truck. I am 25. The blood comes, blooms on my shoes, my shirt, my Jeep, on the face of my watch, an image I would appreciate much more in someone else's poem, smeared all around my mouth. I look like a cannibal devouring juicy children's limbs. One family leaves, disgusted. Another man asks if I'm okay. Tells me he's 47 and this has never happened to him, but what's 47 in CF years? Someone calls an ambulance. I'm not ready to go. I clean up with baby wipes and alcohol swabs. By the time they find me, the blood cough is over. I tell the paramedics I haven't seen anyone in distress. 4. I feel him inching closer, the scalpel-toothed surgeon. Something wet and gleaming is in his hand, a gift for me. In the mirror, my face is awful. I tell myself, I will survive all of this, I will survive all this, I will survive all this. My hands are holding me up. My eyes are green. I always thought they were yellow like dead leaves. 5. In the hospital, inevitably, I am kept isolated from the other sick ones. Whoever they are, we have more in common than with the nurses. Too fragile, all of us, and I can't lie even once more. I am given a paper gown, measured, weighed, plugged into a bag of slowly dripping medicine. I hid for so long. Now all my fears are no longer sacred, just true. My body is unable to sustain life without medical intervention. I have always been the child from the poster, not his jailer, asking for donations, telling the world I breathe through a straw. That's not what this feels like. I am a grown man breathing into the tiny lungs of a child. Those baby lungs rip from the strain. The blood is relentless. I am put into a bed in a sterile room with darkness but also no locks. A shadow at the door enters. The surgeon shows me his hand, blood on the face of my watch, and this is the poem I cannot escape. This next poem, Moth, is the second part of the inspiration for the cover. Mothy moth, flying away. Moth. A dead moth, dropped behind the blinds, now fallen to the floor. Poor guy snuck into a warm place with nothing to eat. Myself sitting on my hospital bed, alone with all my life, desperate to be more than this moment. I don't want to turn to dust on the linoleum. I don't want to die following the rules of my genetics. Tomorrow afternoon the maid will be here, sweep away the corpse, maybe without even noticing. I won't let it happen. From my window I offer to win the crumbling moth. One more flight that no one saw coming. This next poem is more cheerful. It's a love poem. Lucky. I met a girl with bourbon lips and pigeon blue eyes. Right away I decided she could lead me anywhere with her laugh. I didn't even know then. She had stars inside. Brightest lights wrapped in darkest void. All the time the air sparks dangerous around her. Sunlight knows its fellow, comes to meet her. and I swear she glows. Touch of yellow wreathed in blue, pigeon blue eyes. We dance painfully, joyously, with steel, sparring partner in a studio, artistry in the plunge of a blade. Trail of bruises sneaking towards each other's hearts. Kisses I could drown in, sweet, burning bourbon lips. Such a smile before a mind so cunning. She could trick me anywhere too. She is smarter than me, more beautiful, lit by a hotter passion. Stars inside, ever flying, ever free. I'm lucky to be burned. This next poem is Boxing and Therapy and Reconciliation. It's about turning points. If I look like I'm hitting a punching bag, I am not. I am hitting the sickness in my lungs, my gut, and my balls. I'm punching missed classes, missed work, infertility, blurred vision, oxygen deprivation, nights alone in the hospital, dates turned awkward, scars, blood, impairment, piles of pills a day, consequences from missing those pills, emergency procedures, and a shortened lifespan. I am punching fear. I square up and throw a right cross at CF's stupid face. A sludge of lung infection mucus squishes out. I dip and roll to dodge when CF hits back, letting hemoptysis sail over my head. Use the momentum to swing back up. Drop a left hook absolutely as hard as I can manage. Not because I hate what I'm fighting. No. I love the disease. Born normal, I wouldn't be me. We've just been struggling with communication. See, boxing is about breath. A hard exhale on the hit. A full set of lungs to recover. Before I started, a quarter of my lungs were scar tissue. I was never going to take another deep breath again. But never is changing now. This moment, finally, the first time my disease and I speak the same language, all this violence becomes a conversation at last. Just two more. This one is Gentle Places, Jagged People. It's probably the oldest poem in the book, but all of the words are changed from the original. Gentle Places, Jagged People. My people are unruly children. All of us, even the good ones. We are fighters, we are survivors, we are dying in hospital beds. We are purple-faced, we are fire-eyed, very bright, almost pretty. We are awake in the never dark. We know it so well. We have scars all over, bits of plastic sticking out of us. We are charts, graphs, and the big decline. We know secrets we were too young to hear. We are trying to be okay anyway. We are sorry for you to love us. We won't let go. We are jagged people in gentle places. We are searching for a home. We are suffocating along the way. We are not who sickness taught us to be. So alongside the obituary poem series, I have these like perfect days in the book. So this is perfect day 6. It's a nice day in October, so I can wear a sweater. I love sweaters. They're like big hugs I can carry around with me, but I always get too warm. So I'm happy now to be in my sweater on a nice, slightly chilly day. I gathered up a family from the strangest little places. From tables and stages, from offices and cages. The whole bunch of us are spending the day together. Life has been life all this time, but today everything is okay. My wrinkly old arm has 25 tattoos on it, each one representing a book I put out. I look around the warm firelight or the setting sun. We're playing a board game, or eating, or just chatting. My work is done. That's it.